This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. This is a second method of doing a hemmed, that is doubled ribbing. This is a really easy method. The other method involved waste yarn put on circular, and it was also easy and efficient. I like this one really well. I liked it enough that I wanted to show it as an alternative. Now, you want to set up your machine for knit one, purl one ribbing, so every other needle is on the main bed. The ribber's set on P, which is full pitch, and every other needle is on the ribber. Then we want to set our carriages in a really simple way. Both carriages are set on tension 3. That's my ribbing tension. And I have this on plain. This slip lever's off. This slip lever's off. The RP slider is on R, so that's for plain knitting. And up on the main carriage, all the buttons are out. Plain knitting. Now I'm going to knit a zigzag row, and it's a really funny looking zigzag row because it's loose. We need this loose row to give us our sinker loops to pick up when we pick up the hem. So over I go, and look how big those zigzags are. That's because that was way up on tension 3. It's usually done tighter than 0. This is a standard gauge short comb, and it works fine on the bulky for these small samples. Or you could use your short comb. I'm putting that on. Here's a 1 pound weight. Now, I am not changing my settings. I'm just going to go ahead and knit ribbing. I've decided I want a 10 row hem. I'm going to knit 20 rows. Since it's doubled, there'll be 10 rows for the back and 10 rows for the front of the hem. I changed my mind. I'd like to end with the carriage on the right, mostly so that you could see better. So I'm going to go with 21. It'll be fine, I promise. I have to move all the stitches to the main bed so that I can fold up the hem. And I'm just doing that with a double-eyed tool. Now, this is a superior method to picking up a circular selvage because that will give you a lumpier hem. The place where the two bits are knitted together will have more of a ridge in it. This is also a superior method to using waste yarn because the waste yarn is a lot more work. Now, whatever you do, don't knit some waste yarn ribbing and then knit a row of ravel cord and then keep knitting with your garment yarn, because you will find that the ravel cord won't pull out easily. You'll have to pick it out stitch by stitch. The switch from knit to purl is a twisty business, and it makes it really hard to get the ravel cord out if it's in ribbing. Or if you're just using waste yarn only, really hard to get the waste yarn off if it's in ribbing. Now I can drop my ribber, and there's my ribbing. This is a nice spot to use a ribber cover. I took my weight off, and here's what I have. Let's get the comb off too. And now let's look at this funny looking edge. I want you to see just how really odd looking this edge is. See how big and almost raggedy looking those loops are? That's why we do the circular selvage. It makes a better looking edge for the bottom of ribbing. Now, I'm going to use those loops. That's what I'm going to pick up. Those are the sinker loops between the stitches. And the reason they make these little twirly circles is because of the twist from knit to purl. So let's fold those up and pick them up. I'm zoomed in as close as I can to the needles at the top, and then I'm folding these like this, and I'm going to pick up these little loops. I've got my transfer tool. I put my hand behind this, hoping you can see it. And you see how it is a wide open little loop? I just go in there from front to back and put that on my first needle. And then go in the next one, front to back, put that on my second needle. And if the yarn splits, I want to get it all on that needle. I'm pushing it on with my thumb, little split place in the yarn. There we go. Now, if you find that your loops close a little, just push the stitches together and you'll be able to see them more easily. You are looking for the very top loop, and you just poke the tool in there, put it on a needle. They stay on the needle better if you don't pull the needle out too much. It's easier if I put my finger behind them, but let me tell you, once in a while one of them closes up a bit. There we go. And this one. And this one. You see where I'm putting my tool? Right in the center of that little circle. If your loops are too closed up, do an even looser zigzag row. Normally our zigzag row is tight, but for this we want a loose one. There we go, get that. Just trying not to split the yarn. I have splitty yarn. My yarn, however, is pretty easy to pick up. My loops are fairly open. Some of them even have some daylight in the center. Last few stitches. Because I'm picking up a hem, and because these are the sinker loops and not the stitches, I'm going to end up one loop short right here on the end here. You see I have two needles that don't have a loop on them yet, and only one loop. Guess what? That's normal. That is fine. Putting a claw weight on the left, putting a claw weight on the right. I also find this easier for doing the closing row, the first row after the hem, if I put all of the needles into hole. It's just easier for the machine then to go ahead and knit through both loops. It only has to push the needles back and lay the yarn in them and knit. Now I'm unthreading the ribber coupler because I have to swap it. You don't want to use the ribber coupler for knitting stockinette normally. You can do it if you pull the needles out to hold every row, but it's a lot more efficient and more reliable too, I'd say, to use the regular sinker plate. So I'm putting that on. Also, my ribbing was tension 3, but I want my stockinette stitch to be looser for this swatch, so I don't know. I think I'll go to tension 6. Maybe on my project I would find that too loose. I don't know. But I always swatch these interesting little details before I knit a project. Even if I just do them in waste yarn, I want to really have the hang of it before I'm in the thick of the garment. And I want to see that I like the difference in my tension between the ribbing and the garment. So now my first row will go ahead and close the hem. And then after that, I knit some rows of stockinette just so I'll have a good sized watch. And I'm going to bind this off. I'm using the loop through loop bind off. It's a good looking bind off. It's not especially stretchy, but it is good looking and efficient. If you need a stretchier bind off, I would recommend a backstitch bind off using a tapestry needle. If you go and look in my description box, I'm going to have some useful links for you. I have a ribber course. I'll link that. It's free. It's just YouTube videos. I also have a lot of ribber videos because I think we should all be good at using our ribbers and be able to do more with them than just edgings. So you'll find all kinds of interesting techniques there. And if you are looking for something and I don't have it, tell me in the comments. Now, if you like this content, please like and subscribe, and check out the links to my Facebook group and my shopping site, all these resources that I provide for knitters. When I make a hem, I like to set the stitches. So I take a knitting needle and slip it in the middle of the hem. Sometimes I use a chopstick or a pencil. It's kind of whatever's handy, but I give this a tug. And then here's the knit side of the knitting. I'll put it on the gate pegs. Here's the top of that hem. Now keep in mind, this is just one layer of stockinette, but there are 2 layers of ribbing, so of course there's going to be a ridge here where the 2 layers of ribbing join up. But if you look closely at that joining row, look how good that looks. It looks exactly as it should. Now let's look at the back side. And here we have the back side. And I'll stretch it and I'll let it go so you can see the back side. It looks darn near perfect, doesn't it? So there you have another way to make a doubled ribbing. I hope you'll try it.